Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. My email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our radio website where you can listen to the X Zone 24/7, 365. And during our live broadcast, which is Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And, of course, the X Zone is broadcast around the world on the Starcom Radio Network, the Digital Broadcast Network, Digital Satellite Network, and our very own X Zone Broadcast Network. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035 is the magic number to reach us here. And I'm going to give you a date, X Zone Nation. September 15, 2015. Or wait a minute. Or is it September 21st, 2015? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on here. I might have made a mistake. Or is it September the 23rd, 2015? Oh, wait a minute. These are all alleged dates of the end of the world. Oh, that's why there's so many of them. That's why there's so much contradiction. But is the world going to be ending on September the 15th of this year, 2015? I don't think so. And my guest of this hour, Dr. Don K. Preston, says, no, Rob, it is not going to be the end of the world. And in fact, Dr. Don is making a prediction of his very own, that come October the 1st, 2015, there's going to be a lot of red faces out there and a lot of YouTube videos being taken down by the perpetrators of yet another end-of-the-world scam, fraudulent attempt at scaring the hell out of you, the X Zone Nation, and other people around this world. But you know what? It's people like Dr. Don K. Preston who make sure that the truth is out there. And he's been doing this a long time, X Zone Nation. And joining me now is a very good friend of the X Zone Nation, Dr. Don K. Preston. And Don, welcome back to the X Zone, my friend. What the hell is going on here? Why all these dates? Is the world going to end? Don, where are you?
I'm right here, Rob.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, look, Rob, a whole lot of this. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, my friend.
Very, very good. A lot of it began with John Hagee's predictions concerning the four blood moons. He got the world all upset, the evangelical world all upset, predicting that. I'm sorry?
Nothing.
Okay. I was getting a little bit of feedback there. So John Hagee comes up with this prediction that by the middle of September, no later than the end of September, we're going to have Armageddon, Gog and Magog. We're just going to have the whole last days scenario played out in front of us. Rob, is my audio coming through clear?
Yeah, it's coming clear here, Don.
Okay. Every once in a while I get this little blip.
Oh.
And so I just wanted to make sure. So anyway, 3 of the 4 blood moons have already taken place. Nothing has taken place of what John Hagee said. And he described these as earth-shattering events, world-changing events. Well, here we are.
Yeah.
And we're on the verge of the fourth blood moon, which will take place by the end of September. And nothing has happened that is of this earth-shattering, world-shattering nature that Hagee assured us was going to take place. Well, then along comes Jonathan Cahn, C-A-H-N. Now, it may simply be a coincidence that his name is spelled or pronounced Khan, but it's spelled C-A-H-N when it ought to be spelled C-O-N. Because he wrote his first book entitled The Harbinger. And he laid the groundwork for the second book entitled The Mystery of the Shemitah. And this second book, Rob, supposedly and ostensibly lays out the plan that says America. Now, I don't know if I'll be really honest. I don't know if he includes Canada in this or not, Rob. So you may be okay up there.
Hey, my friend, if anything happens to our neighbors to the south in the United States of America, we will stand beside you no matter what.
There you go. There you go. So anyway, he comes up with this, and what he does, he goes back to Deuteronomy, Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. So let me give our listeners just a real brief rundown on what is known as the law of the Shemitah.
Okay.
And by the way, this is spelled S-H-E-M-I-T-A-H. It's not pronounced at all like it is spelled, but that's the nature of the Hebrew. So here's the basic outline. Israel was given a festal calendar. In that calendar, they had weekly Sabbaths. Every Saturday was a Sabbath unto the Lord. No work at all was to be done. Then they had monthly Sabbaths called the new moons. And they celebrated certain feasts on the new moon of each month. Then they had yearly Sabbaths. Then they were to count 6 years. And at the beginning of the 7th year, and that 7th year is what was called the Shemitah. In that 7th year, they were not supposed to plow a field. They were not supposed to cut the grass. They were not supposed to do any agricultural work whatsoever. They were not supposed to take care of their vineyards. In other words, they were just basically supposed to be doing nothing. And as a corollary to not working, a remarkable thing was supposed to happen. All debt was supposed to be forgiven. Now, I don't know about you, Rob, but I'd go for that, man.
Count me in. Count me in. Count me in. Hallelujah.
Yeah, I'd rack it up for 6 years. Well, as a matter of fact, a lot of people did that, and so the rabbis came up with all sorts of ways to get around that. But you were only allowed to sell, since the land was given to the families for an inheritance. They were only allowed to sell their inheritance for like however many years it was until the next Shemitah. Let's say it's 3 years. They could only sell a man 3 years of use for that property. And at the end of that 6-year period of time, at the beginning of the Shemitah and that 7th year, that property reverts to them. That's the principle. Well, along comes Mr. Khan, and he says, hey, when Israel did not observe her Sabbaths, Yahweh, the God of heaven, punished her for that. And we are told in 2 Chronicles chapter 36 that the reason Israel, specifically Judah, went into Babylonian captivity was because she failed to keep her Sabbaths. So that's pretty explicit stuff, right? I mean, we don't have to wonder about why she went in there. Now, she was guilty of idolatry and immorality and all sorts of things, but she also did not keep her Sabbaths. Well, again, Mr. Khan comes along, and he says, hey, that applies to America. And he goes through all of this great big, humongous, fanciful calculations and says, hey, you know what? When the stock market crashed back in the 30s, when the stock market crashed in the 70s, when the stock market crashed in 2008, those were all Shemitah years. This was punishment on America for not observing Shemitah. And I've got to tell you, Rob, I've only produced 4 videos so far, as you and I have been discussing.
Yes.
But I've been pointing out the error in Mr. Kahn's writings from his own book, admissions that he himself makes. And my videos, I don't know what the criteria is to be called going viral, but the first 3 have already had well over 2,000 views. And they've only been posted a couple of days, so they're doing really, really well. And the response from people who are his followers, Rod, is stunning.
How could they be stunning, Don? Don't tell me they're targeting you for being a man who tells the truth and exposes frauds. Now, come on, I know you better than that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. I am a false teacher. I am an apostate. I am a heretic. I am leading souls to hell.
Well, I've got to tell you something, Don. Wherever you lead, I will follow, because it's not going to be hell.
I mean, it's just the poison that has been coming from the keyboards of the people responding. You know, one gentleman, and I won't call his name. I'm certainly not trying to embarrass him, but he attacked me and said that I didn't know what I was talking about, that Mr. Kahn is a man of God just simply trying to warn the nation about coming judgment, blah, blah, blah. Well, I responded with Bible. I responded with book, chapter, and verse, showing from Mr. Kahn's own admissions that he is wrong in light of what the Bible says. And the guy just simply responds by calling me an arrogant false teacher doomed to hell. Well, now that's a stunning response, I have to tell you. So it has just been amazing. The responses, Rob, are disturbing to me because they are pure emotion. They are not intellectual, and they are not biblical, and they're certainly not scholarly.
Is Jonathan Cahn a rabbi?
Yes. He is supposedly a trained rabbi.
Right.
Let me see. I've got the book right here on my desk. It doesn't give much of a bio on him on the very back page.
It's amazing you don't have it in the garbage can by now.
Well, you know, I'm using it as a resource.
Oh, okay.
You know, look, my daddy used to tell me when I was a really young man, if someone is teaching a false doctrine, examine their words carefully, go to the verses, the Bible verses that they are trying to use to support what they are teaching. And if it is false, you will find probably right there in those very verses the falsification of what they're believing. And I found my dad's advice to be very, very true. I mean, it's absolutely amazing when you can go. Let me illustrate what I'm talking about, Rob. On page 55 of the book, The Mystery of the Shemitah. And folks, I urge you, if you've got a copy of this book. Now, mind you, I don't urge you to go out and buy this book. All right? I want to be real clear on that. The man's already made enough money. But I just want you to know, I'm reading verbatim. I'm not adding, I'm not altering, I'm not editing. On page 55, he says, in its first and original context, the Shemitah is connected to Israel. It is the only nation commanded to observe it. And I'm going, well, you just destroyed your entire position. Let me ask you a question here, Rob.
Sure.
Let's say that we have in America a law that says it is against the law, punishable by imprisonment, and forfeiture of all earthly goods, to sit on any park bench in any national park or city park or county park in America on the third Tuesday of every month. Now, that's an American law. Obviously, this is hypothetical. Okay. So let's imagine, Rob, that a police officer in Montreal or Quebec or in any of the provinces of Canada is walking by one of the beautiful parks up there on the second Tuesday of any given month, and lo and behold, there is a couple sitting on a park bench. Do you suppose that he would have the right to arrest them and imprison them and make them confiscate all their goods?
Well, being an ex-cop myself in Montreal, first of all, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. However, if the law states that you're not allowed to do what you're doing and the couple are in fact breaking the law as mandated by the courts or by the judicial system of the district, yes, then he is obligated as a peace officer to make an arrest.
That's exactly right. As an officer in Quebec, enforcing the laws of Quebec, but would he have the right to arrest them and imprison them based on American law?
Definitely not.
Okay. And yet here is Jonathan Cahn saying the law of Shemitah, which he says is the reason that the American economic system is going to collapse, and his term for it is catastrophic collapse. He says it's going to happen no later. Now, by the way, Rob, amazing, just as you led into the program, amazement of amazement, he's already hedging his bets and saying, well, may not be September after all. He's actually been asked, well, Mr. Cahn, so what happens if nothing happens, as you have said it will?
Yeah.
And Mr. Kahn's response was, it won't make any difference whatsoever. We will continue to glorify God and look forward to when something does happen. And I'm going, that is just the most disingenuous, silly thing that you could possibly say. He's written two books, Rob, pointing to September 2015, not October, not 2016, not 2025, but September of 2015. Well, here we are. Pardon me. It's the 8th of September.
Yeah.
We only got 21 days left until the end of Shemitah. And, I looked at the Dow Industrial Average this morning, and it was actually up about 3.5 points. Now, we had a, really, really massive collapse. What was it, a week or two ago here in America? I mean, I don't have any stocks or bonds, so I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it until something like Mr. Cahn is doing here comes up. But, yeah, it took a huge dive, but then it's recovered. And today, when I looked at it, it was up 3.5 points. That's not massive, but it's certainly not, a nosedive, and it's certainly not catastrophic, as Mr. Cahn is predicting. So in the next 21 days, according to his predictions in this book, The Mystery of the Shemitah, the American economic system has to absolutely, completely, totally collapse. But there's no sign of that. But here's the real point that I was making, Rob, with my illustration about, being the policeman there in Quebec versus a policeman here in America, the law of America not being applicable in Quebec. He admits, Rob, the Shemitah law, Israel was the only nation commanded to observe it. Well, if the Shemitah applied to Israel and Israel alone, then why in the name of reason would anybody believe that the law of Shemitah and punishment for not observing it would be applied to America, which is not Israel?
Well, you know what? This guy is starting to sound a lot like Islamic leaders. The Islamic leaders want Sharia law to be enforced in North America. So
Yes.
he's on the same track as those wingnuts.
Well, here's what's interesting about that. You're absolutely right in its practical application. And yet, he even goes ahead to say in this book, let me find where I underlined that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by the way, he says, when the sun goes down on Elul 29th, which is September 29th, all the nation's debts are wiped away as its financial accounts are wiped clean.
Yay! I don't owe anybody any money. Yay!
Yeah, absolutely.
A new beginning for my wife.
That is, I mean, that's just absolutely incredible. I've got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
Now, okay, on page 76 and 77, I thought I remembered where it was. Here's how he seeks to get around this. Once again, he's being utterly disingenuous, totally illogical, totally unbiblical. Okay, let me first of all call attention to a verse in Scripture in which Yahweh was speaking to Old Covenant Israel. And he said, I have given you, that's Old Covenant Israel, my statutes, my commandments, my judgments. I have not done so for any other nation. Now that's pretty clear. That's pretty emphatic. God said he never gave the Old Covenant law to any nation except Israel.
Yeah.
Then we come to the New Testament, and Paul says the Gentiles, that's you and me, Rob, do not have the law. And he's talking about the Old Covenant law, which includes the Shemitah. Okay, so, back to my illustration. If you and I and our nations are not under the law, then we are not subject to Shemitah. And yet here's Jonathan Cahn saying America's economy is going to collapse because of Shemitah. Now that's a pretty glaring issue since he's already admitted that America is not under Shemitah. It was given to Israel only. So here's how he tries to explain away this very obvious conundrum, this very obvious inherent self-contradiction. He says beginning on page 76, is it possible that the mystery of the Shemitah has been operating in the modern world since before the time of the harbingers? Is it possible that it's been affecting the course of nations and world history and that it lies behind some of the most pivotal events of modern times? To answer this, we must distinguish between the observance of the Shemitah and Shemitah as a prophetic sign. Now, listen very, very carefully here, Rob.
You have my undying attention.
Only Israel was compelled to keep the Shemitah as an observance. As an observance, the Shemitah applies to one nation. Pardon me. But as a prophetic sign, it may apply to any nation. I'm sorry. So it doesn't apply to us, but it applies to us.
This guy seems to be a little bit of a wingnut.
I don't know if that's what it takes to write a book that millions of people will buy.
Well, of course, my friend. Look at the news. If it don't bleed, it don't lead. Look at all the crap on television. My God, Don, I am so disillusioned with broadcasters in Canada and the United States for putting all the crap that they do on. There's a fat lady that's dancing on the screen. She's got her own show. You've got this guy who makes cakes. He's got his own show. You've got these people, pit bulls and parolees, for God's sake. They have their own show. The more sensational it is, Don, the more viewers we get. And this is, to me, a sign of how sick society is, my friend.
I absolutely agree with you. I would go back to a book written some years ago, well before the current situation. But Schaefer, oh my goodness, I've forgotten his first name, and that's terrible. I love the book. The book was entitled, How Should We Then Let... Francis Schaeffer, man. Francis Schaeffer, who was a philosopher of tremendous note, he wrote a book back during the 80s entitled How Should We Then Live? Now, the 80s, let's face it, were not the greatest decade, for American society, for society in Canada or whatever.
Yeah.
So we saw an awful lot of decadence begin to creep in. Francis Schaeffer began to point out an awful lot of these examples of just off-the-wall behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And pointing out that this kind of off-the-wall behavior that has no logic, no reason, no rhyme, no attachment to true reality at all. It's the result of men's decadence, of man's slide into irrationality and secularism. And he pointed out, and he did it in a magnificent way. And folks, if you haven't read Francis Schaeffer's book from the 1980s, I recommend that you look it up on the internet and get a copy of How Should We Then Live? And you'll be amazed as you read his book. And even some of the pictures that he gives from back then during the 80s, Rob. And it's super, super, super tame stuff as opposed to what we see on television these days, or, all of these so-called reality shows, some of which you just listed there. You just sit and you shake your head, see, we got this program, I Am Kate. And we got a president who says that took tremendous courage for this pervert.
Yes.
Excuse my language.
No, I agree with you 100%. Hooray, I'm not the only person who thinks that Bruce Jenner is a nut. Hooray!
Yes.
Good.
So, but here's the point. What happens when the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage in America?
Mm-hmm.
The President of the United States had rainbow colors
on the White House.
On the White House.
Yep.
Celebrating
Yep.
this unprecedented in history event, declaring it a wonderful day in American history. And yet, an American sniper who was personally responsible for saving hundreds, perhaps thousands of American lives because of his deadly accuracy as a sniper, when he was murdered in Texas, the President of the United States barely even mentioned his name.
Yep.
And
well, I'll give you another example.
That has continually spoken out, and anytime there has been a black man killed by white police, he has automatically spoken up and said it's injustice, it's racism, etc. Even though after grand jury investigations have determined there was no wrong done, he has not apologized a single time.
Don, when that Texas police officer was executed by getting shot in the back 18 times while he was filling up his car at a gas station, the performance of his duty protecting and serving the public by an African American. The news didn't cover it.
No,
it was covered.
No.
It was covered just enough to say, "All right, we covered it." There were no racial riots.
No, where were the riots that said cops' lives matter?
Well, you know what I did? I went on air and I did a tirade for about 20 minutes. It pissed me off, Don. It is so slanted. The world that we live in is so slanted. The squeaky wheel gets not only the oil, but the accolades from like-minded bimbos who listen to them.
Yeah, it's astounding that the head of the Democratic National Party went on national TV and praised the Black Lives Matter group that was marching in the street going pigs in a blanket. How do we want police? We want them dead now. Wow. And said, this movement is an affirmation of Black America. Well, excuse me, anytime you march in the street, and by the way, I don't care if you're black, white, purple, and green with polka dots. Anytime you're marching in the street saying we want the police to be dead, you are not affirming life.
No.
You are a hate-filled, racial individual that needs to be in prison as far as I'm concerned.
But you know what? We're too damn politically correct, my friend.
That is absolutely the problem. Now, Rob, here's the deal. Here we have Mr. Jonathan Cahn saying that September the 29th, now that's the month of Elul in the Hebrew calendar. all right, that's when all debts are supposed to be wiped out. Now, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Cohen doesn't have a whole lot of debt by this time because he sold a gazillion books. But I'll guarantee this. Come October the 1st, I'm still going to have the same debts that I do today, unless I can come up with some money between now and then. And you're going to have the same debts. You live in Canada. But, my question, why wouldn't Canada still be subject to this law of Shemitah? He has singled out America, Rob. And I got to tell you, I love Canada. Always have. I've been to Winnipeg. I absolutely loved it up there. Now, I'm not a cold weather person. That's why I don't live in Canada. So, but it's perplexing to me why he singles out America and says not a word about Canada,
all right, Don,
even though Canada is a major, major economic power.
Don, you and I have to take a commercial break. I'm going to let you get something for your cough, my friend.
Thank you.
Exo Nation, my guest this hour, the one and only Dr. Don K. Preston, a very good friend and a member of the Exo Nation and family, www.bibleprophecy.com. By the way, William Shatner said it best. Remember that? Con! We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. What was that, Bill? Yeah, we'll continue talking about this shoister when we come back from this break. Don't go away. Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Call him Reef. Reef is your host. Reef is your guide. Are you happy? Happiness is like trying to find water in the desert. Can you find any? Sometimes, sure, but only a few drops. God is an ocean of joy, but God is not cheap. You cannot find God in a chemical. You must attract God's attention. How? Not by living to please your senses. That is false ego. The Matrix is not real. It is a computer-enhanced hallucination. You are spirit soul, not the body. We have forgotten how splendid our home really is, the spiritual sky. For more information, visit rishasongofblue.com. That's www.reshasongofblue.com. Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
All right, we've got the drums beating around the world. People are getting really ticked off. Enough is enough. Come on, we're over politically correct. People are walking all over us. You know, what is going on in this world today? What has happened to sanity? We've got all these stupid shows on television. We've got the worst of the worst on the news channels. We've got people who are basically saying, hey, I left my country because of all the problems. I'm going to bring the problems now over to this country. And you know what? You can't do a damn thing about it because you passed the laws that says I am protected by you. Yeah, just imagine that. Well, let me tell you this, Exxon Nation. My answer to those kind of moronic people is where the plane landed, it takes off from. If you can't play nice, go back home to your own sandbox, even if it is a kitty litter box. I am so fed up of this political correctness. It seems that you can't say anything wrong about anyone except the cops and Caucasians. Have you noticed that? A cop was executed. I mean, executed in Texas. There were no riots. There were no marches down the streets with people holding up banners that say police lives matter. How come? I've got an idea. The next time you're in a crunch, the next time you need emergency assistance, the next time somebody's breaking into your house, the next time somebody is robbing a bank, don't call 911. Call a demonstrator. See how far that'll get you. Oh, but wait a minute. I know you've got your rights. Well, so do we. So do we, the people who appreciate life. We, the people who appreciate the work that law enforcement officers do on a minute-by-minute basis. We, the people who appreciate the men and women around this world of ours who are protecting our rights and our freedoms. So if you don't like it, go back to where you came. It's that plain. It's that simple. There you go, Don. I said it. Don K. Preston's our guest, www.bibleprophecy.com. Don, did you hear the story about the flight attendant who
Yes.
Was suspended for not serving alcohol, and now she's taking the airline company to court? What the hell? What's going on here?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Don.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'm
sorry.
No. I wasn't saying I wasn't talking about you, my friend. I was talking about the tenacity.
Oh, absolutely.
Of these.
Look, I am absolutely convinced, Rob, that an awful lot of these cases, and I want to be very careful with what I'm about to say here, because I know that all Muslims are not this way. I've said this on this program before. I am convinced, however, that in many, many cases, perhaps like this situation with the stewardess on the airplane, that they are purposely doing things like this.
Oh, you better believe they are.
They, it's just like in the case of the woman in Kentucky, the county clerk.
Aye, good for her.
She was following state law, which said she was not to give marriage licenses to anyone other than man and woman.
Yep.
She was doing her job, but it was gays from out of state who could have gotten licenses anywhere else had they wanted to, but they purposely chose to go there because they wanted this situation.
Of course.
Look, there is an unprecedented amount of persecution of Christianity and of decency and morality and of right and of wrong, of overt persecution of the standards upon which America was founded. And it just stands as an incredible tribute to how much we have slid. For instance, in some states in America right now, Muslim children are allowed to stop what they're doing during the class period, turn toward Mecca and pray.
Yep.
Now, what would happen if Christian young people asked to be able to do that, to turn toward Jerusalem?
We already know.
Absolutely not. We believe in the separation of church and state.
Yeah. But we already know that because, as you and I have discussed many times before, Don, the Bible is no longer allowed in classrooms. And you don't say the Lord's Prayer anymore because it's politically incorrect.
Absolutely. Well, there's so much wrong, and I am convinced, Rob, I'm absolutely convinced that part of the reason for this has been the disenchantment that has continued to grow in many, many, many hearts and lives because of the continuing false predictions of men like Jonathan Cahn. I mean, let's face it, American history, you go back into the 19th century. You go back before that, but in the 19th century, three major American religions sprang up in the 19th century as a direct result of false predictions, strangely enough, and all the paranoia about what turned out to be false predictions about the end of the age, the end of the world is coming. Joseph Smith founded Mormonism based upon, well, let's see, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He believed, he taught they were living in the last days. William Miller, 1844, that's the end of the world. Here it comes, folks. There's no question about it whatsoever. Literally thousands of people gave away their goods. They got up on the top of barns. They got up on top of the mountains. Nothing happened. William Miller drops back 10 yards and says, oh, well, yeah. Let me recalculate. It's 1845. Nothing happened. And it came to be known as the Great Disappointment. Well, so they pick up from that, the Seventh-day Adventists do. Ellen G. White picked up from that and says, oh, the Lord showed me what the problem was. The Lord purposely deceived William. Oh, my goodness. Excuse me. William Miller purposely.
Oh, my goodness. Sounds like
goodness, I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
That came out of nowhere. purposely deceived William Miller and caused him to make the false prediction. I mean, my goodness, that's a first. God purposely causing somebody to bring embarrassment to Christianity. And so you have, and of course, you have the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes.
So here's my point. You have this continuing, ongoing, seemingly perpetual roll call of false teachers. You come into the 20th and the 21st century, you got Harold Camping, you got Hal Lindsey, you got Grant Jeffrey, you got John Hagee, and, John Hagee's time's running out, but I'll guarantee you he's busy recalculating. He's really busy working up a lesson in which he's going to say, I never predicted any of that stuff. You guys misunderstood me. And look, I have to tell you, Rob, I hear from people on a daily basis who have been disillusioned. Some of them have left their faith. They've abandoned their faith. About 2 weeks ago, I was contacted by a man who had become an atheist as a direct result of all of this nonsense, such as Jonathan Cahn is perpetuating. And it continues to filter down. It continues to disillusion people. Here's what I did with one YouTube person who challenged me, called me a false teacher, heretic, doomed to hell, etc., because the collapse is coming. Jonathan Cahn is a man of God. I said, okay, I said, let's do this. Are you willing to put up $500 with your word that will say that by and no later than September the 29th, 2015, the American economic world will have a, catastrophic collapse, unquote. And if it does not happen, that you will send me that $500. Well, haven't heard from him, Rob.
Why doesn't that surprise me, my friend?
I've made similar challenges. Early last year,
yeah,
a guy set a date, and he said the world will definitely end by this date. And I said, no, you're wrong. And I said, I make the following challenge. I have $1,000. I made it $1,000 on that occasion.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I said, I'll put up $1,000 if you will. And on the day after that, you will send me $1,000 when your predictions that the world is going to end no later than that date. And he said, most assuredly. Well, the date came and went. I contacted him and I said, where's my $1,000? He said, I never made any such bet. You're nothing but a liar and a false teacher. I've never said anything of the kind. Well, I had copied and pasted everything that he said, so I had the proof of it. But I'll nearly guarantee you, as I mentioned a moment ago, Rob, John Hagee is already drafting a lesson somewhere, somehow, some way, in which he's going to say, I was completely and totally misunderstood. Or he's going to point to some off-the-wall event that virtually nobody knows about and says, see, that's it. I'm telling you, that's it right there. Well, unfortunately, he said the Great Tribulation, the Battle of Gog and Magog, all of that stuff was supposed to take place by the end of September 2015. I mean, it's there. The record is there. It can't be denied. But he'll deny it anyway, just like Jonathan Cahn. Oh, by the way, I wanted to share this with you. This is on page 77 of Jonathan Cahn's book. Now, after telling us in the book how precise this 7-year pattern is, all right, and after supposedly demonstrating from history how precise this 7-year pattern is, as I noted before the break, he tries to make a distinction between observance and the prophetic sign. He then says, as a prophetic sign, it may apply to any nation. By the way, he doesn't give a single Bible verse to prove this. None whatsoever. But then he says this, as an observance, the Shemitah comes regularly every seventh year. But as a sign, it is not bound to any schedule or regularity. But when it does appear, it will manifest the essence of the Shemitah, its effective mystery in the form of a sign. Well, once again, he doesn't give a single Bible verse, and the question then has to be asked. If the Shemitah observance is not commanded of any nation except Israel, but it's a prophetic sign, and if the Shemitah judgment, since it's not a law given to any nation except Israel, his statement is, I don't know if you caught the subtlety of this, Rob, you probably did, but he said, as an observance, the Shemitah comes regularly every seventh year, but as a sign, it is not bound to any schedule or regularity. In other words, even though in the book, he's been setting September 29th, 2015, his way out is by saying, hey, I actually said it doesn't have to appear with any regular pattern. It's just there. So just like recently when he was pressed and asked, okay, what happens if nothing happens? His response was, nothing. We will just simply glorify God and continuing to expect that it will happen. Utter, absolute, unmitigated nonsense. I mean, how in the world? You know, I want to be as kind as possible here, Rob.
I know, you're a kind man.
But how in the world thinking people can read such self-contradictory nonsense?
Well, it's very simple, because when they read it, this is what they hear, Don. That's how.
Yeah, I know. And look, I've been corresponding with a number of people, as I mentioned, that have been caught up in the past paranoia, fear-mongering of false teachers down through the years, and their ears are now open to recognize error when they hear it.
But you know when I saw it all starting, Don? Going back to Y2K.
Oh, my, yeah.
This is when I saw it starting, because people with nefarious ways of doing things, the people who are negative, the people who prey on the fear of the innocent saw, hey, wait a minute. I can make money on this. Look at, they're afraid of the year 2000. Imagine if we bring back doomsday, the end of the world, how we can make money. That's what it's about, Don.
What happened in 2012? That's precisely what was going on.
Yeah.
You had Christian prophets, Christian Bible teachers. I use that word Christian somewhat loosely in this connection. Yeah. But you have Christian Bible teachers pointing to the Mayan calendar to predict the end of the world, for crying out loud.
And the funny part was the Mayans said, hey, we never said that.
That's exactly right. The Mayans were going, where'd you get that at?
They got it from a guy who used to love taking psychotropic drugs, for God's sake. It had nothing to do with the Mayans. In fact, when Laura and I went down there and we spoke to the Mayan Council, they said, Rob, it's like up in Canada and the United States. New Year's Eve, you take down the old calendar and you put the new one up. The world doesn't end, the year does.
Right. Well, I think that you touched upon it there a moment ago. I really believe that there is, I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy, except in this sense, that there is a collective understanding on the part of a good number of individuals. Mm-hmm. And by good, I don't mean morally good, but I mean a significant number of authors, of writers, of marketers who understand that there is, in fact, an audience out there that all you have to do is touch their fear nerve.
Yep.
They will automatically, that fear nerve is automatically connected to the rear hip and the wallet. And they will whip that wallet out. Yeah. They will buy the latest book. They will forget that they've already got 15 or 20 books in their library that said the same thing, only set different dates. The names have been changed, but the storyline is exactly the same. And their library is full of books of one failed prophecy after another, and yet they'll go out and buy this latest one. Oh, this is it. This has got to be it. This is the truth. Wait a minute. What about the other guys? Oh, well, they just miscalculated a little bit, but this is right. This is the truth now. And in 10 years, there will be more.
Yeah.
It's very possible that Jonathan Cahn may come out with another Cahn book in which he will be claiming, time's up. I've got it all figured out this time, folks. This is it.
All I know is that I remember Harold Camping. I remember Prophet Yahweh. I remember all these end-of-the-world nutcases. And there's only one book that I keep in my library when it comes to prophecies, and that's the Bible, Don.
Absolutely. And that's... Oh, I apologize for that.
No problem.
I don't normally get... I don't normally get calls here at the office at this time of night.
Well, maybe it's Jonathan Cahn listening to the show.
Hey, that would be great.
Hey, listen, Don, can you stick around for another half hour?
Yes, I could do that.
Okay, let's take our news break. We'll be back, and we'll, because I want to get to the positive side. We've done an hour of negativity, but I want to show the people that there is hope.
Absolutely.
All right,
sounds
Don.
good.
Dr. Don K. Preston is my guest, Exo Nation. He's going to be with us on the other side of the news at the top of the hour. And then we're going to play two. We're going to keep in the spirit of things tonight with end-of-the-world prophecies and how I handled them with two other guests. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. And Dr. Don K. Preston and I will be back on the other side of this news break. For more information on Dr. Don, visit his website, www.bibleprophecy.com. This is the X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. But you know what, X-Zone Nation? You know me long enough to know that I wear bullcrap boots during the show. And enough is enough. We're too politically correct. We're not allowed to speak our minds. It's crazy. And take it from me. Police lives matter. We'll be back on the other side. Don't go away. Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com. Manifestation is driven by imagination, intent, and passion. In our culture, all three have been distorted and disabled by modern media and exploitation. Re-engage your imagination and your passion by entering into the world of paranormal romance. Kahir O'Donnell takes her readers on an exciting journey into the endless possibilities of loving, passionate, and mutually respectful male-female relationship. Her latest book, The Long Dark Night, features special ops adventure, a daring rescue, a psychic woman from the stars, and a special agent that will die to protect her. The Long Dark Night by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or Amazon.com. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Jeff Gilson didn't go out looking for adventure, danger, or the answers to most of the controversial political intrigues of the past 30 years. But he found all three when he began investigating the mysterious death of his close friend, Margaret Thatcher's favorite speechwriter. Just an ordinary guy living in a small, sleepy suburb 20 miles outside of London, Jeff's questions provoked a powerful response on both sides of the Atlantic. He was shot at, warned off by the CIA, and formed a close bond with one of Israel's most notorious intelligence officers. Relive Jeff's gripping adventure in his fast-paced book, Maggie's Hammer. Peel away the layers of establishment deception and discover, as Jeff did, that his friend was an assassin with British intelligence, that Great Britain has been America's secret hitman for the past 30 years, and that Princess Diana was not the target in that Parisian tunnel. All of this and more when you visit www.maggieshammer.com and find the link to buying this explosive book online. More and more ordinary people feel they no longer have control of their lives. Jeff fought back. He asked the difficult questions. He set out to redesign his own destiny, and you can do the same using Maggie's Hammer as your guide. Don't waste a moment. Buy it today. Visit www.maggieshammer.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, X Zone. Dr. Don K. Preston has kindly said yes, he'd stay over another half hour, because this is a very important topic that we're talking about this hour here in the X Zone. It's a topic that affects each and every one of us, whether we know it or not. You know, we talked about the false prophecies of the end of the world. We've seen this happen in 20K. Well, this is when I noticed it all started, going back to 20K, Y2K, I should say, when people would call up different talk shows, including the X Zone, crying because they did not know how they were going to survive. And then there were the unscrupulous people who wanted to make a fast buck and saw that by using fear they could accomplish this. It hasn't stopped. Dr. Don K. Preston is a good friend of the X Zone, a good member of the X Zone family. His website is www.bibleprophecy.com. And first of all, Don, thanks ever so much for staying over. I sincerely appreciate it.
No problem.
But these are dark times, Don. You know, and even in the Bible, it says, basically at the end times, there would be a lot of false prophets. Now, are we in the end times, or are we in the times that are an awakening?
I do not believe at all, Rod, that we are in the end times. The Bible uses the term the last days, and it uses it with a great deal of frequency. I wrote a book a few years ago entitled The Last Days Identified, and it's available on my website, by the way, BibleProphecy.com. And I've had people tell me it has completely revolutionized their life. It has brought tremendous comfort to them because they no longer feel like that we've just got the end of the world right around the corner and all this kind of stuff like that. And it's certainly not the popular view, because the popular view is the paranoia and the fear that we've been talking about on the first part of the program.
Right.
But as the old saying goes, the truth is seldom as thrilling as a lie.
Yes.
Because if you're going to tell a lie, you can say anything that you want to. You can make it as phantasmagoric as you want to, where the truth, it just kind of plods along and it's just there and it's always there and it never changes. And that's what I've attempted to do in that book, The Last Days Identified. And the last days are identified in the Bible, not as the last days of time, not as the entirety of the Christian age, but the term the last days in the Bible refers to the last days of the Old Covenant age of Israel that ended with the fall of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple in AD 70. One of the things that we do, Rob, that and you and I have talked about this an awful lot. When people today read the Bible, they completely forget about audience relevance.
Yeah.
And audience relevance means that we go to any text. It really doesn't matter what the text is, and it most assuredly applies to the Bible, but we ask our basic questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who wrote it? Who were they writing to? Who were they writing about? What did they say? When did they say it? When did they say it would happen, et cetera, et cetera? But people, they pick up the Bible, and this is God's book, must be speaking about me right here, right now. And all of a sudden, it's almost like God wasn't even talking to the people in the first century or in the 7th century BC or whatever. People just go to text, they rip it out of its context, and they say, well, see, that's talking about right here, right now, that's talking about America. It's just like Jonathan Cahn in his book, The Mystery of the Shemitah. Even though he admits it was written to and it was written about and it applied only to Israel, he rips it away from Israel and says, oh, no, it's America too. And he gives no supporting proof except his word. That's all he gives. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I'm not convinced because I've got the Bible that tells me he's wrong. He's flat, dead wrong. But here, I tell you what, Rob, you said you wanted to talk about some positive things.
Yeah.
Even though I consider Mr. Khan's book nothing but a con, and even though I think it's extremely sad that literally millions of people have bought his book, made him a wealthy man, even though I think that's extremely sad, I've got to tell you, I am hearing from more and more people whose eyes are being opened, who are realizing we are not in the last days, that we have some fantastic days ahead of us. Is there a really good likelihood that there's some bad days ahead? Yes, because history is cyclical.
Of course.
I mean, that's all you can say, and it's undeniable. Historians tell us every single civilization generally goes through about 5 different periods. You have a founding period. You have a period of excitement and discovery. You have a period of expansion. You have a period of defense. You have a period of crystallization, and then the fall. Okay. Well, the realization is, unfortunately, America is in a period of decay. And there's little question about that. Even men who are nothing but pure historians who are witnessing what has been taking place in American society. I mentioned Francis Schaeffer, who is not a historian but a philosopher. I mean, here's a guy who said America is on the downward path, and he wrote that in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. Well, the same thing can be said of Great Britain. Historians have looked at what's going on over there.
Sorry for interrupting you. We just have some news, and the city of Baltimore reaches $6.4 million settlement with the family of Freddie Gray.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
$6.4 million. Know what this is going to do?
Yes, I do know exactly what that's going to do. You're going to have more and more people rioting in the streets, hoping the police arrest them and put them in a paddy wagon so that they can claim that they were abused and they want their settlement.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a prophet, but I can see people who are in it for profit, and I was just absolutely amazing. Now, look, I am a really, really firm believer, Rob. We've all seen examples of it, even in the news over the last year or so. The South Carolina policeman that shot a man in the back 6 times as the man was running away. That's nothing but murder. Yeah. The policeman needs to be prosecuted for it. Okay.
Definitely.
I am a very firm believer that lawmen need to be held to an extremely high standard. But I'll guarantee you, I'm one of these guys who appreciate policemen. A matter of fact, just recently, Rob, after an awful lot of this stuff had hit the fan and it's in the news and the policemen everywhere were being vilified, I was in one of my very favorite barbecue places eating one day, and there were a couple of local policemen came in. I didn't know their names. I do know some of the policemen here locally, and every one of them that I know they're great guys. They're conscientious. They're good men. And anyway, I didn't know these 2 guys. They were up at the buffet. They didn't know me, but I walked up and I said, guys, I just want to say something. I said, I know there's an awful lot in the news about people hating on policemen. But I said, I happen to be one of those guys that appreciate policemen. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate the fact that you put your lives on the line for the citizens virtually every day. You never know what's going to happen when you walk up to a car. And I said, I just want to say to you that not only I, but an awful lot of people in this town feel exactly the same way. Whole bunch of people in the restaurant at the same time spoke up and said, amen. Those are my sentiments. And I mean, people were just saying, that's it. You're exactly right. And one of these policemen almost started crying.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell it was such an emotional moment for them just to hear from some regular citizens that, hey, we don't hate you guys. We respect and we appreciate these, to use the term, these first responders who in these big cities are literally out to kill them. But Here's where I'm going with all this. I said I want to talk about the positive.
Yeah, well, there's an old saying, Don, they don't wear badges, they wear targets.
They do. I mean, and that's the unfortunate reality of it. I mean, it's just how anybody with any sense of human dignity and humanity could call for open season on policemen just because they're enforcing the laws. And I know what it's all about. They want anarchy. That there's no question. There are people, the Black Panthers among them in America, they want anarchy. Well, you know, the Supreme Court used to rule that when you are advocating violence, that's not legal. That is not freedom of speech. You cannot yell fire in a crowded movie theater.
That's right.
Well, why is it okay to say, I want to kill cops? I want cops dead. That's how far our Supreme Court has degenerated in America, by the way, as we see them continue to make proactive. These men have become legislators instead of judges who simply speak to the Constitution itself. I mean, constitutional lawyer after constitutional lawyer has commented on how the recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions, not just the decision on gay marriage, but other decisions as well, are just an overt violation of the Constitution. These men are political activists. They're not constitutional judges.
Well, would you say that your president is a political activist?
Beyond words to describe. He is one of the most radical, liberal, socialist men that has ever held the office of president. And he has abused. How many times have his decisions gone under judicial review all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, even as activist as it is, even as liberal as it is, has said, no, he's overstepped his bounds, he's violated the Constitution. And yet he steps back and says, and here's the irony, by the way, we were speaking about the lady in Kentucky,
yes,
the county clerk. Mm-hmm. The spokesman for President Obama praised the judge's ruling that put her in jail. And he said, we are a country of law. We must abide by the law. So this woman violated the law. She must go to jail and pay the price. And yet it was the President of the United States who, in regard to what is known as the DOMA law, Defense of Marriage Act, said, I am going to direct the Justice Department not to enforce that law. So here we have the President of the United States saying, I don't care about the law. I don't care what the law says. I'm going to do what I want to do. But when a woman stands up who is actually obeying the laws of her county and the laws of her state, they say she needs to go to jail. That's the utter hypocrisy of the political scenario and scene in America, starting at the President of the United States.
You know, Don, I must have a misprinted Bible here, because I'm just going through the book of Genesis, and it says Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Well, of course you misread it. Everybody knows that, don't they? Well, look, I continue to be amazed at the willingness of people to completely ignore the Bible, to completely pervert the Bible, to use the Bible for their own purposes, and to give a prime illustration on this. I read not too long ago a debate between a homosexual and a Christian. And the homosexual said the Bible condones and even advocates and approves of homosexuality. And, of course, the Christian preacher challenged him on that. And he said, I know it's true because Jonathan and David loved each other. Well, la-ti-da. There's a verse in the Bible in Titus chapter 1, 14 and 15. To the pure, all things are pure, but to the defiled and unbelieving, all things are unclean.
That is so true. That is so true. And, if we're going to take that example that you just gave us, how about the hymn, Jesus Loves Me? Does that mean, because that was one of my favorite hymns growing up, that Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so, that this is what's the word I'm looking for here? An approval of homosexuality?
Well, I wouldn't. I wish you wouldn't have said that, Rod, because the gay community will probably pick that up and use it now. See, oops. But that's the pardon me. That's the perversity that is out there. But again, back to the good side of this. Back to the positive side. I'm telling you, Rod, the number of people that I am hearing from that are opening their eyes. Number one, to the falsity of that. Number one, to the perversion of that. Number three, to the dangers of men like Jonathan Cahn, who are saying, you know what this Preston guy and thousands of others just exactly like him, because I'm certainly not the only one out there that's saying it by any stretch of the imagination. It just happens that I have a ministry that's focused on this, and I'm trying awfully hard to spread it as much as possible. But I'm telling you, it is spreading like wildfire, bringing truly good news to people who have been caught up in all of this nonsense, caught up in the cons, caught up in the fear-mongering, caught up in giving their goods away and suffering the financial loss. And there's not one single one of these prophets for profit that have ever offered to give a dime back. Harold Camping, after one of his major false prophecies, he had garnered several, I think it was $16 million that had been given to him, if I remember the number correctly. Anyway, his prophecy failed. One interviewer asked him, are you going to return any of the money that was given to you to the people who very often sold their homes, they sold their cars, they emptied their bank accounts? He said, well, no, I'm not going to give any of that money back. They gave it to me because they wanted to. Now, you tell me that's not a con man. That's a crook.
Yeah, it reminds me of Jimmy Baker and Tammy Faye and the rest
yes,
of the PTO
absolutely.
club.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm really suspecting that when nothing happens on September the 29th, Jonathan Cahn is not going to put out a national announcement that will say, folks, I'm really sorry to disappoint everybody. If you'll go down to your local bookstore, I'll give you your money back. It's not going to happen. Now, I want to tell you, that's a prediction that absolutely will come true. He will not give people their money back on his false prophecies. His predictions are false. My prediction is true. He will not give any money back. But, Rob, again, the good thing is, massive change doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't.
The movement of which I am a part of which I try to be a respectable voice, is at the grassroots level. And yet I am hearing from an increasing number of very respected, scholarly individuals who are very, very influential. I'll share one anecdote with you very quickly, Rob. Not long ago, in a major metropolitan area, I won't even mention where, I had about a 3-hour Bible study with 5 very, very, very influential ministers. One of them is a pastor for a mega church of 3,000 people, okay? Now, obviously, he's got a lot at stake. After listening to my presentation, after engaging in Q&A, the gentleman just spoke up and he said, well, I have to tell you something. I do not any longer know what my eschatology is, what my view of the end times really is. He said, I've studied amillennialism. It doesn't work. I have studied premillennialism, and he said, even though I was at one time a dispensationalist, and a dispensationalist is obviously somebody like Harold Camping and John Hagee and what have you. But he said, I was once a dispensationalist, but he said, I have now come to the view that dispensationalism, also known as Zionism, is one of the most dangerous theological doctrines that has ever been foisted on the human race. And he said, I am adamantly opposed to it. And he said, I've studied postmillennialism, and he said, I'm not really sold, but he said, I've got to tell you something. I am very, very excited about what I've heard from you today. He said, what you have shared with us today has a message for the future that is a message of hope. It is a message of change. It is a message of optimism. And he said, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and tell you in 3.5 hours that I agree with everything you say, because I don't even know everything that you're going to say in future get-togethers. But he said, I will tell you, I am extremely excited about what I've heard today. One of the other men who was there, very influential individual, said, I have to tell you, Don, I have felt for a long time that evangelical eschatology, and he was referring to, dispensationalism. Mm-hmm. He said, I have felt it is leading us into a dead-end box of death. He said, it is destructive, it is pessimistic, he said, it's dangerous. He said, but I've said here today, I have heard your message, and I am convinced. He said, now, I've got a lot to learn about this. But he said, I believe that what you have shared with us today is the message to lead us out of this box of death. And he said, I can't tell you how excited I am. And that's the way that's now, Rob, here are 5 men who have tremendous influence.
Right.
And do I expect them to go back to their pulpits the following Sunday and say, hey, guess what, folks, we're not in the last days, blah, blah. No, I don't expect them to do that, because they would be terminated immediately. But will they possibly begin to share the seeds of change? I know of one university where that very kind of seeds of change are being planted right now in the curriculum. They have a 13-week series of videos that I produced on one of my books, and it is being taught as a college course. Now, what might that mean for 10 years down the road, for 20 years down the road, as student after student after student is exposed to the message that I'm sharing, and they begin to grasp it and to realize, hey, you know what? We're not in the last days. The world's not about to end. We're going to be around for a little while. The implications of that for ecology, for society, just for plain old getting along with one another, are absolutely incredibly profound. That's the wonderful news that I'm seeing taking place every single day, Rob.
Hey, Don, thanks so much for staying with us this extra half hour. It needs to be said, so I'm glad that you stuck around and that you were able to get the rest of the message out there. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, Don, and how they can contact you with their thoughts.
Absolutely. My website is www.bibleprophecy.com. My contact information is on the website. It'll tell you where to send an email, or how to just simply say contact us. A bunch of my books, including The Last Days Identified, is on there. I really, really, really urge you to get a copy of that book. Feel free to email me, even if you disagree with what I've said, folks. I'll be happy to correspond with you. And Rob, thanks so much for having me on. It's always such a joy and a privilege and an honor.
Take care, my good friend. I look forward to the next time we meet here in the X Zone. Why don't we make it around September the 16th so we can both have a good laugh?
Yeah, I tell you what, let's do.
You've got it.
I'm going to be out of town, but let's make it October the 1st.
All right, October the 1st it is. Dr. Don K. Preston, take care of yourself. And Don, please give my very best to your family.
I will, and you too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. There we go, X Zone Nation. Dr. Don K. Preston has been our guest this hour, www.bibleprophecy.com. Let's continue this end-of-the-world scenario. Coming up next is an interview I did with...